Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Gregory Wright Show. We are going to pick up where we left off. About 2 weeks ago, I made two installments of the Department of War's Pete Hegseth addressing commanding generals that were summoned to come to Quantico, Virginia last month to be addressed by the Department of War on specific issues regarding the military. And so if you look back at my videos, you'll find that I started the first installment where Pete Hegseth he started at the 30,000 foot level. He was talking about how powerful our military is around the world. It's the strongest and most powerful in the world. And my second video where I showed where he brought it down from 30,000 feet to about 15,000 feet and really started to address individual issues like standards and appearance standards, behavior standards and things of that sort. And in my second video, my second installment was about how he was going to start to cook and bring it down further down to the 10,000 foot, 5,000 foot, or maybe even ground level at this point, to where he starts to dig into specifics about what he expects from each commanding general that was gathered in Quantico, Virginia last month. Let's get into the video.
I've made it my mission to uproot the obvious distractions that made us less capable and less lethal. That said, the War Department requires the next step. Underneath the woke garbage is a deeper problem, and a more important problem that we are fixing and fixing fast. Common sense is back at the White House, so making the necessary changes is actually pretty straightforward. President Trump expects it. And the litmus test for these changes is pretty simple. Would I want my eldest son, who is 15 years old, eventually joining the types of formations that we are currently wielding? If in any way the answer to that is no, or even yes, but, then we're doing something wrong. Because my son is no more important than any other American citizen who dons the cloth of our nation. He is no more important than your son. All precious souls made in the image and likeness of God. Every parent deserves to know that their son or their daughter that joins our ranks is entering exactly the kind of unit that the Secretary of War would want his son to join. Think of it as the golden rule test. Jesus said, "Do unto others that which you would have done unto yourself." It's the ultimate simplifying test of truth. The new War Department golden rule is this: do unto your unit as you would have done unto your own child's unit.
That is very important. I'll bring it back a little bit. But I just wanted to stop it there and make a point about his point. Look, all the guys that don't want to join the military, that's fine. The military isn't for everyone. It is for the few that believe that they can change their lives within the snap of a finger, and quite literally it happens that way. There's 1 week where you're pondering whether or not to join, and then you make up your mind that you're going to join, and then soon after that, you're training, you're gearing up for boot camp, which is not uncommon. After gearing up and training up for boot camp, maybe a month later, maybe a little bit less than that, you're shipped off to Paris Island or San Diego, California, or if you're looking to become an officer, you're going to, and I'm specifically talking about the Marine Corps because that's all I know. I mean, I know there's Fort Benning and all that for the Army and all that, but specifically for the Marine Corps, you quite literally 1 month could be just pondering whether or not you're going to go into the military, and then the next month you're shipped off to boot camp. It happens that quickly. And the military is the only organization, or one of the only ones that I know, that incentivizes physical fitness, being paid to be physically fit, being paid to have a family, being paid to be a patriot, something that should come natural to all of us. And so people who are like, well, the military, they're mercenaries and this and that, and I'm not fighting the white man's war. Well, in some shape, form, or fashion, you are fighting the white man's war, whether you're in the military or not. If you're working for a company or a government agency or a state agency, 9 times out of 10, that company or state agency or federal agency is owned by the white establishment. And unless you own your own business, and when you own your own business, you're working for the customer. So yeah, you're working for yourself, but you're working for the customer, and they're all shapes, sizes, and colors. So those that talk down about the military they're using that as an excuse not to do what needs to be done in terms of making sure that you're giving back. I mean, this is the greatest country in the world. You know why I say that? Because there's no wonder why millions and millions and millions of illegal aliens want to break into our country year over year over year over year. And then you have millions and millions that do it the right way, that, you know, want to take the U.S. entry exam and fill out all the arduous paperwork and wait long periods of time to be accepted and called. And then you go to a court building somewhere and you raise your right hand and you swear allegiance to the United States, right? But we have to bring it back down to, hey, if I'm gonna send my child to the military, I want that unit to be physically fit and situationally aware of their surroundings, so that complacency and boredom and laziness doesn't get those individuals killed. So if you don't want to go to the military yourself, or if you don't want to send your child to the military, oh, by the way, the military offers assistance with college education. They offer assistance with financing a home, without which, if you're a normal civilian, it'll be 10 times harder to get those things. And so when you're talking about accessibility to education and financing a home and other benefits, then you have to do some sacrificing. And the sacrificing could be personal or indirectly sending your child to serve in the United States. By the way, you are a United States citizen. I believe that it should be mandatory that United States citizens serve in some capacity. It doesn't have to be the military armed forces. It could be the Air National Guard, Army National Guard. It could be the police force. It could be the fire department. Whatever it is, you are serving your community in a capacity where you're focused on things that are bigger than yourself.
Jesus said, do unto others that's what you would have done unto yourself. It's the ultimate simplifying test of truth. The new War Department golden rule is this: do unto your unit as you would have done unto your own child's unit. Would you want him serving with fat or unfit or undertrained troops? Or alongside people who can't meet basic standards? Or in a unit where standards were lowered so certain types of troops could make it in? In a unit where leaders were promoted for reasons other than merit, performance, and warfighting? The answer is not just no, it's hell no. This means at the War Department, first and foremost, we must restore a ruthless, dispassionate, and common sense application of standards. I don't want my son serving alongside troops who are out of shape, or in combat unit with females who can't meet the same combat arms physical standards as men. or troops who are not fully proficient on their assigned weapons, platform, or task, or under a leader who was the first, but not the best. Standards must be uniform, gender neutral, and high. If not, they're not standards. They're just suggestions. Suggestions that get our sons and daughters killed. When it comes to combat arms units, and there are many different stripes across our joint force, the era of politically correct, overly sensitive, don't hurt anyone's feelings leadership ends right now. At every level, either you can meet the standard, either you can do the job, either you are disciplined, fit, and trained, or you are out. And that's why today, at my direction, and this is the first of 10 Department of War directives that are arriving at your commands as we speak and in your inbox. Today, at my direction, each service will ensure that every requirement for every combat MOS, for every designated combat arms position, returns to the highest male standard only. Because this job is life or death. Standards must be met. And not just met, at every level we should seek to exceed the standard, to push the envelope, to compete. It's common sense and core to who we are and what we do. It should be in our DNA. Today at my direction, we are also adding a combat field test for combat arms units that must be executable in any environment at any time and with combat equipment. These tests, they'll look familiar. They'll resemble the Army Expert Physical Fitness Assessment or the Marine Corps Combat Fitness Test. I'm also directing that warfighters in combat jobs execute their service fitness test at a gender-neutral, age-normed male standard scored above 70%. It all starts with physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular, hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. And as the chairman said, yes, there is no PT test. But today, at my direction, every member of the joint force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year, every year of service. Also today, at my direction, every warrior across our joint force is required to do PT every duty day. Should be common sense. I mean, most units do that already, but we're codifying it. And we're not talking like hot yoga and stretching. Real hard PT, either as a unit or as an individual. At every level, from the Joint Chiefs to everyone in this room to the youngest private, leaders set the standard. And so many of you do this already. Active, Guard, and Reserve. This also means grooming standards. No more beards, long hair, superficial individual expression. We're going to cut our hair, shave our beards, and adhere to standards. Because it's like the broken windows theory of policing. It's like when you let the small stuff go, the big stuff eventually goes. So you have to address the small stuff. This is on duty, in the field, and in the rear. If you want a beard, you can join Special Forces. If not, then shave. We don't have a military full of Nordic pagans. But unfortunately, we have had leaders who either refuse to call BS and enforce standards, or leaders who felt like they were not allowed to enforce standards. Both are unacceptable. And that's why today at my direction, the era of unprofessional appearance is over. No more beardos. The era of rampant and ridiculous shaving profiles is done. Simply put, if you do not meet the male-level physical standards for combat positions, cannot pass a PT test, or don't want to shave and look professional, it's time for a new position or a new profession.
You know, traveling to and from work Monday through Friday. I work in DC, and I make a stop at the Pentagon to catch either a train or a bus, depending on the time of day. If it's the morning, I'm catching a train. If it's the afternoon, I'm catching a bus back home. And I'm surprised at the number of male and it's really black males I've seen in full uniform with a goddamn beard, man. Not as wolfy as mine, right? I'm a nasty civilian, but a Marine at heart. I spent 20 years shaving my face. Never once had a shaving chit. Never once. There was no excuse. Even if I caught bumps up under here, it's a thing called assimilation. It's a thing called unity. It's a thing called unit integrity that must occur in order to build trust within your fire team, your squad, your company, the company you keep, the company you keep around you, the decisions you make off and on base, off and on duty, being professional off and on duty means a lot. And so there's a lot of folks out there that I've seen at the Pentagon while I'm catching the bus back home, full uniform with a full grown beard, and they're walking around like they a bag of chips, right? They all that in a bag of chips, like we used to say in the 90s. You got to have a shaving chit for that, which means that you had to see a medical professional about your dermatology issue, because it is a dermatology issue, and black men usually do get bumps if they're not shaving regularly. If you shave Monday through Friday, it's not enough. You have to shave on the weekends if you are a person with coarse hair who is a male that needs to shave. And so I totally agree with what the Department of War is saying about these standards.
I sincerely appreciate the proactive efforts the secretaries have already taken in some of those areas, service secretaries. And these directives are intended to simply accelerate those efforts. On the topic of standards, allow me a few words to talk about toxic leaders. Upholding and demanding high standards is not toxic. Enforcing high standards, not toxic leadership. Leading warfighters toward the goals of high, gender-neutral, and uncompromising standards in order to forge a cohesive, formidable, and lethal Department of War is not toxic. It is our duty, consistent with our constitutional oath. Real toxic leadership is endangering subordinates with low standards. Real toxic leadership is promoting people based on immutable characteristics or quotas instead of based on merit. Real toxic leadership is promoting destructive ideologies that are an anathema to the Constitution and the laws of nature and nature's God, as Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence. The definition of toxic has been turned upside down, and we're correcting that. That's why today, at my direction, we're undertaking a full review of the department's definitions of so-called toxic leadership, bullying, and hazing, to empower leaders to enforce standards without fear of retribution or second guessing. Of course, you can't do like nasty bullying and hazing. We're talking about words like bullying and hazing and toxic. They've been weaponized and bastardized inside our formations, undercutting commanders and NCOs. No more. Setting, achieving, and maintaining high standards is what you all do. And if that makes me toxic, then so be it. Second, today at our direction, we're ensuring that every service, every unit, every schoolhouse, and every form of professional military education conduct an immediate review of their standards. Now, we've done this in many places already, but today it goes across the entire Department of War. Any place where tried and true physical standards were altered, especially since 2015 when combat arms standards were changed to ensure females could qualify, must be returned to their original standard. Other standards have been manipulated to hit racial quotas as well, which is just as unacceptable. This too must end. Merit only. The president talks about it all the time, merit-based. Here are two basic frameworks I urge you to pursue in this process. Standards I call, my staff's heard all about them, the 1990 test and the E6 test. The 1990s test is simple. What were the military standards in 1990? And if they have changed, tell me why. Was it a necessary change based on the evolving landscape of combat? Or was the change due to a softening, weakening, or gender-based pursuit of other priorities? 1990s seems to be as good a place to start as any.
Yeah, I just want to make a point about that. When I was training up to go to officer candidate school, this was in the mid-90s. The standard was that for physical fitness test, you needed to do as many sit-ups, meaning that you put your feet under something or have a partner sit on your feet. You lay flat on your back with your legs bent, and you start. Ha, one, ha, two, ha. And those were a lot harder, but I managed to get at least 80, 85. I think you got to do as many as you can within, I believe, 2 minutes. But I was in the 85. I was in the 80 to 90 range, which is pretty decent. I mean, if you scored 100, that was obviously way better. But, just starting off, I was in between 80 and 90, just depending on how much I practiced. And then you had to do as many pull-ups as you could until you tired out. There's no time limit on pull-ups in terms of how many you do, like sit-ups. But I think to score 100 in that event, you had to do about 20 pull-ups, which, if you're at a decent weight and you've been practicing, shouldn't be a hard thing to do, right? And then the 3-mile run, I believe in order to score perfect on that, you had to run 3 miles in 16 minutes or something like that. I was, first starting off, I was hitting around 18, 19, 20 minutes or whatever the case is. But then as time went on, the sit-ups went from this to crunches to where you didn't have to come all the way up. Your forearm just had to touch your thigh, because you're laying with your legs bent, right? You're laying with your legs bent. And so this is, the upper half of your body. So, you would have to come up just like that doing crunches, but in regular sit-ups, you got to come all the way up here. So yeah, I do understand what he's talking about change in standards, and I don't know why it changed.
And the E6 test. Ask yourself, does what you're doing make the leadership, accountability, and lethality efforts of an E6, or frankly an O3, does it make it easier or more complicated? Does the change in power staff sergeants, petty officers, and tech sergeants to get back to basics? The answer should be a resounding yes. The E6 test or O3 test clarifies a lot, and it clarifies quickly. Because war does not care if you're a man or a woman. Neither does the enemy. Nor does the weight of your rucksack, the size of an artillery round, or the body weight of a casualty on the battlefield who must be carried. This, and I want to be very clear about this, This is not about preventing women from serving. We very much value the impact of female troops. Our female officers and NCOs are the absolute best in the world. But when it comes to any job that requires physical power to perform in combat, those physical standards must be high and gender neutral. If women can make it, excellent. If not, it is what it is. If that means no women qualify for some combat jobs, so be it. That is not the intent, but it could be the result, so be it. It will also mean that weak men won't qualify because we're not playing games. This is combat. This is life or death. As we all know, this is you versus an enemy hell-bent on killing you. To be an effective, lethal fighting force, you must trust that the warrior alongside you in battle is capable.
Yeah, so I'm going to stop it right there. This is going to be my last installment of the Department of War, Pete Hegseth, addressing commanding generals that was summoned to come to Chronicle, Virginia last month to get addressed. And some may look at it as being dressed down in terms of, oh, holy crap, I'm not used to listening to this. I'm not used to having this said to me, because you had a weak Lloyd Austin, who was the predecessor to Pete Hegseth, who didn't give a shit about combat readiness, which is the reason why we appeared weak around the world. They laughed at President Biden. His threats like, don't. When it came to Vladimir Putin invading Ukraine, don't. What the hell does that mean, right? You can't stop the enemy with the word don't, right? It is a worthless threat to a fierce enemy and fierce enemies around the world. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and please be sure to check out my next video. Thank you for watching.